The rain hammered against the penthouse windows as Jasmine pressed herself against the wall, her heart threatening to break through her ribs. Sua's small hand clutched hers with desperate strength, the little girl's eyes wide with fear she was too young to understand. "Stay behind me," Jasmine whispered, positioning herself between the child and the door, where angry voices echoed through the hallway. She'd taken this job out of desperation, a fired teacher with bills piling up and pride worn thin. Watching the daughter of Seattle's most dangerous man had seemed like easy money. 3 months ago, she would have laughed at the idea of standing between a 7-year-old and armed men who'd invaded Han Sung-min's fortress. 3 months ago, she hadn't known what it felt like when his dark eyes softened only for her, when his dangerous hands became gentle, when the most feared man in the Pacific Northwest knelt before his daughter and showed Jasmine the man beneath the monster. The door exploded inward. Jasmine didn't scream. She pulled Sua closer and stood her ground, because some things were worth fighting for, some people were worth protecting, even if loving them might destroy you. The coffee shop in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood smelled like burnt espresso and crushed dreams. Jasmine Williams stared at her laptop screen, watching her bank account balance mock her with numbers that didn't add up to next month's rent. 3 months since Woodbridge Elementary had restructured her position right out of existence. Her phone buzzed. Another rejection email. "We appreciate your interest, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates." "Girl, you need to stop torturing yourself." Brianna slid into the seat across from her, 2 lattes in hand. Her best friend since community college had the kind of optimism that should have been illegal before noon. 47 teaching positions in 3 months, Jazz. 49, Jasmine corrected, accepting the coffee. 2 more rejections this morning. Those bastards at Woodbridge really screwed you. Brianna's eyes flashed with familiar anger. A parent complains you're too hard on their precious Brandon, and suddenly you're unemployable. Jasmine wrapped her hands around the warm cup. November in Seattle meant rain and cold that settled into your bones. The complaint wasn't the problem. It was Principal Matthews backing the parent instead of me. Once word got around I'd been let go for disciplinary reasons, every school started ghosting my applications. Her phone buzzed again. This time not an email, a text from an unknown number. Interview opportunity, childcare position, excellent compensation, available today at 2 p.m. An address in Madison Park followed, one of Seattle's wealthiest neighborhoods. Jasmine frowned. "Did you give my number to some babysitting service?" Brianna leaned over to read the message. Her eyebrows shot up. "Madison Park? Whoever this is has serious money." A second text arrived. $5,000 per week. Live out position. References required. Serious inquiries only. Jasmine's coffee nearly slipped from her hands. $5,000 a week. That was more than she'd made in a month as a teacher. "Are you going to that interview?" Brianna announced, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling my cousin Marcus. He's a cop. He can run the address, make sure it's legitimate." "Bree, this is crazy. Nobody pays that much unless they need someone qualified, professional, and desperate enough not to ask too many questions." Brianna's expression turned serious. "Pride doesn't pay rent, Jazz. Pride doesn't keep the lights on." 3 hours later, Jasmine stood in front of a modern masterpiece of glass and steel that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. The mansion commanded a corner lot with views that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. She pressed the bell. The door opened to reveal a man who looked like he'd been carved from marble and dressed for war, Korean, probably in his 30s, with a face that belonged on a cologne advertisement and eyes that promised violence. He wore an expensive suit that did nothing to hide the dangerous way he carried himself. "Jasmine Williams?" His English carried the faintest accent, cultured and cold. "Yes, I'm here about the childcare position." He studied her with an intensity that made her want to step back. Instead, she lifted her chin and met his gaze directly. Grandma Rose had taught her never to let anyone make her feel small. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Approval, maybe. "This way," he said, stepping aside. The interior was exactly what she'd expected. Marble floors, contemporary art, furniture that probably cost more than her car. But there was something else too, an absence of warmth. This was a house, not a home. He led her to a study where another man waited. This one was older, perhaps 40, with the kind of presence that made the marble-carved doorman look like an amateur. Han Sung-min. She knew his name before he introduced himself, because men like this didn't need introductions. "Ms. Williams." He didn't stand, didn't offer his hand, just gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Kwan Hyuk tells me you arrived exactly on time. Punctuality is important. She sat down, keeping her spine straight and her expression neutral. Your teaching credentials are impressive, Han Sung-min continued, opening a folder that made her heart skip. He had her full employment history. Master's degree in early childhood education, 7 years at Woodbridge Elementary. Glowing reviews until 3 months ago. I assume you also know why I was terminated. I know what the official record states. I also know the truth. He closed the folder and fixed her with a gaze that seemed to see through her. You disciplined a student for bullying behavior. The student's father complained. Your principal chose politics over principle. You refused to apologize for doing your job, so they removed you. The accuracy stole her breath. How did you... I make it my business to know things. He leaned back in his chair. You stood up for what was right even when it cost you everything. That's the kind of person I need watching my daughter. Daughter, so this was about a child. Tell me about her, Jasmine said. Suah is 7 years old, intelligent, curious, and lonely. The words came with an undercurrent of pain. Her mother died when she was 3. She's been raised primarily by staff who are competent, but not warm. She needs someone who will actually care about her well-being. Jasmine heard what he wasn't saying. This little girl was growing up in a beautiful prison, surrounded by people who worked for her father but didn't love her. The salary is generous because the position requires discretion, Han Sung-min continued. My business interests are complicated. You will see things, overhear things. These things stay confidential. Always. What kind of business interests? The kind that pay $5,000 a week for qualified childcare. They stared at each other across the expensive desk. Jasmine knew she should walk away. Every instinct screamed that this man was dangerous, that getting involved would be a mistake. But she thought about her grandmother cleaning houses, about the dignity and hard work. She thought about a 7-year-old girl growing up without warmth in this cold, beautiful prison. And she thought about her own empty apartment, her own mounting bills. When would you need me to start? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Kwon Hyuk will send you a contract and NDA tonight. He stood. One more thing, Ms. Williams. Suah has been through 4 nannies in the past year. They left because they couldn't handle the complexity of this household. If you accept this position, I expect you to stay. My daughter doesn't need another person abandoning her. Jasmine rose from her chair and met his gaze directly. Mr. Han, I don't abandon children. That's not who I am. Good, he said, because neither do I. Kwon Hyuk appeared to escort her out, but as Jasmine reached the door, a small voice called from the hallway. Papa. A little girl stood at the top of the stairs, dark hair in pigtails, wearing a school uniform that looked too neat, too perfect. Her face was beautiful, delicate features that blended Korean elegance with something else. But it was her eyes that captured Jasmine's attention, 7 years old and already carrying a sadness that didn't belong on a child. Suah, you should be doing homework. Han Sung-min's voice transformed, still commanding but softer. I finished. The little girl descended the stairs slowly, her gaze fixed on Jasmine with open curiosity. Who's this lady? Someone who might be spending time with you. Suah stopped 3 steps from the bottom, studying Jasmine. Are you another nanny? The question carried weight, experience with disappointment, expectation of abandonment. Jasmine smiled and knelt down to be at eye level. My name is Jasmine. I used to be a teacher. Why aren't you a teacher anymore? From the mouths of babes. Jasmine felt Han Sung-min's gaze on her, testing. I stood up for a student who was being bullied, she said honestly. Some people didn't like that. Suah processed this with the seriousness of a tiny judge. My friend Ella gets bullied at school. Nobody stands up for her except me. Then you're very brave, Jasmine said. That's not always easy. Papa says being brave means doing the right thing even when it's hard. Suah looked at her father with adoration that made Jasmine's chest tight. Then she turned back. Will you stay? The other nannies always leave. The question hung in the air, a challenge, a plea, a hope disappointed too many times. Jasmine glanced at Han Sung-min, whose expression remained neutral, but his hands gripped the edge of his desk just slightly too tight. Yes, Jasmine heard herself say. I'll stay. Jasmine's first week passed in a blur of new routines and careful observation. The Madison Park house operated with military precision, which made sense once she understood what Han Sung-min actually did. She'd figured it out within 3 days. The men in expensive suits at odd hours. The hushed conversations in Korean that stopped whenever she entered. The way Kwon Hyuk carried himself, not as an assistant, but as a soldier. The way people looked at Han Sung-min with respect and fear that went beyond normal business. Han Sung-min was Korean Mafia. Not the Hollywood version, something older, more organized, more dangerous, and somehow Jasmine had become part of that world. "Miss Jasmine, you're doing the frustrated face again," Sua observed from the kitchen table, where she was supposedly working on math homework. Jasmine blinked. "Sorry, sweetheart. Just thinking." "About Papa?" The question landed like a freight train. "What makes you say that?" Sua shrugged with 7-year-old wisdom. "You think about him a lot. Your face changes when he's around." Jasmine absolutely did not want to examine how accurate that was. "I think you should focus on your homework." "I'm done." Sua pushed the workbook across the table. "Can we make those cookies now? The chocolate ones you promised?" They spent the next hour baking, and Jasmine felt something inside her chest loosen for the first time in months. This, teaching a child to measure ingredients, laughing at flour-covered faces, this was what she'd missed. "My mama used to bake," Sua said quietly, carefully pressing cookie dough into rounds. "I don't remember it much. I was really little when she got sick." Jasmine's hands stilled. This was the first time Sua had mentioned her mother. "What do you remember?" "She sang to me, Korean songs." Sua's voice was almost a whisper. "Sometimes I dream about them, but when I wake up I can't remember the words." The ache in Jasmine's chest intensified. "Maybe your papa could teach you some of those songs." "He doesn't sing anymore. Not since Mama died." Sua looked up with eyes too old for her face. "He doesn't smile much either. The other nannies said he's cold. Are you scared of him?" Was she scared of Han Sung-min? Yes and no. She was terrified of what he represented, but she wasn't scared of him as a person, just wary. "Your papa is intense," she said finally, "but intense isn't the same as cold. I think maybe he's protecting himself." "From what?" "From being hurt again." Sua absorbed this with a solemn nod. "Like armor. Papa told me about Korean warriors who wore armor in battles. He said sometimes people wear invisible armor to protect their hearts." Smart kid. Devastating kid. They were pulling the first batch out when Han Sung-min arrived home. Jasmine heard him before she saw him, footsteps that moved with predatory grace across marble floors. "Papa!" Sua abandoned the cookies and ran toward the hallway. Jasmine followed more slowly, arriving in time to see Han Sung-min catch his daughter in a hug that transformed his entire presence. The dangerous man disappeared, replaced by a father who held his child like she was everything worth protecting. "You're home early," Sua said. "I finished my meetings." His gaze shifted to Jasmine, and something complicated flickered in his expression. "I wanted to have dinner with you tonight. We made cookies. Miss Jasmine taught me how to measure without spilling." "Did she?" Han Sung-min's attention remained on Jasmine. "They're chocolate chip," she said. "Traditional recipe." "Miss Jasmine says her grandma taught her to bake," Sua added. "She made us use real butter because margarine is an insult to cookies." The corner of Han Sung-min's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." She was. The past tense still hurt. "She raised me after my mum passed, taught me that cooking with love was just as important as following the recipe." Something in his expression shifted. Recognition. Understanding born from shared loss. "Papa, can Miss Jasmine stay for dinner?" Sua asked. "Please." "Sua, I'm sure Miss Williams has her own plans." "Actually, I don't," Jasmine heard herself say. "If it's not an imposition." "It's not," Han Sung-min said quickly. Then, more controlled, "Kwon Hyuk can order from the restaurant. What would you like?" 30 minutes later, Jasmine found herself at the massive dining table, watching Han Sung-min interact with his daughter with a tenderness that contradicted everything else about him. He asked about Sua's day with genuine interest, listened to her stories with patience, corrected her table manners with gentle firmness. This was not the cold Mafia boss. This was a father trying his best. "Miss Jasmine stood up to Mrs. Park today," Sua announced between bites. Jasmine nearly choked. "Sua? Who's Mrs. Park?" Han Sung-min's voice went cold. "One of the other moms at pickup," Jasmine explained. "She made a comment about Sua's homework folder being disorganized. I may have mentioned that judging other people's children is unproductive." "She said more than that," Sua interjected. "She said Mrs. Park should focus on her own son's behavior instead of criticizing everyone else's kids." Han Sung-min set down his chopsticks. "What did Mrs. Park say about Sua?" The protective edge in his voice made Jasmine's pulse quicken. "Nothing important." "Jasmine." He said her first name like a command, and the intimacy of it made her breath catch. "She implied that Sua's homework habits reflected poorly on her home environment," Jasmine admitted. "I disagreed." Vocally. Silence stretched. Sua looked between them with wide eyes, clearly regretting bringing this up. Then Han Sung-min did something unexpected. He laughed, not a full laugh, more like a breath of genuine amusement, but it transformed his face. For just a moment, Jasmine saw the man he might have been in a different life. 4 nannies in a year, he said, still with that hint of amusement. None of them defended Suah. You've been here a week, and you're already confronting judgmental mothers. Is that a problem? No. His eyes met hers across the table, and the intensity there made her forget how to breathe. That's exactly why I hired you. The moment stretched too long, charged with something neither acknowledged. Suah looked between them with an expression far too knowing for 7 years old. Papa, you're doing the face, she announced. What face? The one where you look at Miss Jasmine like she's a puzzle you're trying to solve. Jasmine nearly laughed at how quickly Han Sung-min's composure cracked. His ears actually turned slightly red. I think it's time for your bath, he said to his daughter with exaggerated authority. But the cookies, after your bath. Miss Williams, would you... He hesitated. Would you stay until after Suah's bedtime? I'd like to discuss some scheduling matters. It was an excuse. They both knew it. But Jasmine found herself nodding anyway. An hour later, with Suah bathed and tucked into bed, Jasmine found herself alone with Han Sung-min in his study. The house felt different at night. Quieter, more intimate, dangerous. You're good with her, he said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey without asking. She's talked more in the past week than she has in months. She's a special kid. Jasmine accepted the glass, noting how his fingers brushed hers. Smart. Observant. She sees more than you probably want her to see. I know. He moved to the window, staring out at Seattle's lights. I tried to give her a normal life, normal school, normal schedule, but there's nothing normal about being my daughter. She doesn't need normal, Jasmine said. She needs love and stability. She needs to know she matters more than your business. The words came out harsher than intended. She expected anger, but Han Sung-min just nodded slowly. You're right. He turned to face her, and in the dim light he looked less like a Mafia boss and more like a man carrying too much weight alone. Her mother used to balance me, keep me grounded. Since she died, I've let myself become... He trailed off. Cold, Jasmine finished. That's what Suah said the other nannies called you. And what do you call me? The question hung in the air, loaded with meaning. Complicated, she said finally. Dangerous, but not cold. Cold implies you don't feel anything. You feel too much, you've just locked it all away. He moved toward her and she should have stepped back. Instead, she held her ground as he stopped close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated. You see too much, he said quietly. Occupational hazard. I spent 7 years learning to read children. Adults aren't that different, just better at hiding. And what do you see when you look at me? A man who terrifies me. A father who loves his daughter desperately. Someone dangerous and damaged and absolutely off limits. Someone who needs to smile more, she said lightly, stepping back before the moment could become something neither could take back. Suah wants her father back, not just her protector. Han Sung-min's expression shuttered. My world doesn't allow for weakness. Smiling is weakness. Loving your daughter isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you do. She left before he could respond, before she could analyze the way he'd looked at her in the dim light of that study, before she could acknowledge that something had shifted between them tonight. Brianna called as Jasmine drove home through Seattle's rain-soaked streets. How's working for Mr. Tall, Dark and Dangerous? Complicated, Jasmine said. Uh-oh, that's your I'm in trouble voice. I'm not in trouble. You're lying. I know you're lying voice. You like him. I don't even know him. But you want to. What's he like? Jasmine thought about Han Sung-min's rare smile, the way he held Suah like she was precious, the intensity in his eyes when he'd stepped close. He's not what I expected. Meaning I need to be very careful not to forget why I'm really there. She hung up before Brianna could push further, but the warning echoed in her mind. Stay professional. Keep boundaries. Remember that Han Sung-min lived in a world of violence and crime, and falling for him would be the biggest mistake of her life. But as she drifted toward sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her, like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve, like she mattered, like she was something precious he didn't quite know how to protect. 3 weeks into the job, Jasmine's carefully maintained boundaries began to crack. It started with small things. Han Sung-min coming home earlier, always with an excuse about meetings ending ahead of schedule, the way he'd linger in doorways, watching her help Suah with homework, how he'd started asking her opinion on everything from Suah's curriculum to what they should do for the holidays. Papa never asked the other nannies what they thought, Suah observed one afternoon, sprawled on her playroom floor. He just told them what to do. Jasmine looked up from the book she'd been reading. Maybe he's learning to delegate better. I think he likes you. Suar said it with the casual certainty of childhood. It's okay. I like you too. I told him that yesterday. You what? He asked if I was happy you were here. I said yes. I said you're the best nanny we've ever had, and I wanted you to stay forever. The little girl returned to her drawing. He got quiet after that. Jasmine's heart did something complicated in her chest. She'd spent 3 weeks trying not to examine her growing attachment to this child, to this household, to the dangerous man at the center of it all. She didn't want to leave. Not in 6 months, not in a year, maybe not ever. That terrified her. Miss Jasmine. Suar held up her drawing. Who do you think this is? The 3 stick figures stood in front of a house. One tall figure with dark hair, one smaller figure with pigtails, and one figure with distinctive curly hair colored in with brown marker. Is that us? It's my family, Suar corrected. Papa, me, and you. The casual way she said, my family, made Jasmine's throat tight. This child had been without a mother for 4 years, surrounded by staff who did their jobs but didn't love her. Now she was attaching to a nanny who had no guarantee of permanence. Suar, honey, I'm your nanny. That's different from... I know what you are, the little girl interrupted with unexpected firmness, but I also know what I want you to be. Before Jasmine could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Kwon Hyuk. Boss needs you in his study. I'll watch Suar. The message felt ominous. Kwon Hyuk arrived within minutes. Suar adored him. He was like a dangerous uncle who always had candy in his pockets. Papa wants to see Miss Jasmine, Suar announced. Do you think he's going to fire her? No, Kwon Hyuk said with certainty. He's not firing her. How do you know? Because he'd be an idiot to let her go, and your papa isn't an idiot. Jasmine walked toward Han Sung-min's study, suddenly nervous. The door was ajar and she could see him through the gap, standing at his desk, shoulders tense. She knocked lightly. You wanted to see me? Come in. Close the door. Jasmine obeyed, suddenly very aware they were alone in a way they rarely were. Han Sung-min turned, and she saw immediately that something was wrong. His jaw was tight, his eyes darker than usual, tension radiating from him. We have a situation, he said, without preamble. One that affects you and Suar. Ice slid down Jasmine's spine. What kind of situation? The kind where rival organizations test boundaries. He moved around the desk. I have enemies, but recently one has decided that my family might be a useful pressure point. Someone threatened Suar. The words came out sharp, protective fury overriding professional distance. Not directly, but there have been incidents. A car following her school bus. Questions asked at her school. My security intercepted them, but... He paused. I need you to understand what you've walked into. Being associated with me, with my daughter, puts a target on you too. You're trying to warn me off. I'm trying to give you a choice. You can walk away now, and I'll compensate you. Or you can stay, knowing this job just became more dangerous. Jasmine thought about the past 3 weeks, about Suar's growing smile, her increasing confidence, about the little girl upstairs who'd drawn a picture of her family that included a nanny who was supposed to be temporary, about the man standing in front of her, offering her an exit, even though it clearly cost him to do so. I'm not leaving, she said firmly. That little girl has lost too many people. I'm not adding to that list. This isn't about loyalty, Jasmine. This is about staying alive. The use of her first name still affected her. I understand the risks. I'm choosing to stay anyway. Han Sung-min moved toward her, and this time there was something different, something raw and honest he usually kept locked away. Why? The word came out rough. You've been here 3 weeks. You don't owe us anything. I owe Suar the stability she deserves. I owe her the chance to trust that someone will stay. Jasmine lifted her chin. And maybe I owe myself the chance to matter to someone again. The confession hung between them, more honest than she'd intended. Han Sung-min stopped close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You matter, he said quietly. To Suar. He paused. You matter. Her breath caught. This was dangerous territory. She was his employee. He was her boss. He was also a criminal. But the way he looked at her made all those rational arguments scatter. Mr. Han Sung-min. The correction was soft but firm. When it's just us, call me Sung-min. That's not appropriate. Nothing about this situation is appropriate, but I'm asking anyway. They stood there, 2 people on the edge of something neither had planned for. Jasmine knew she should step back, maintain professional distance, but she couldn't make herself move. What exactly are you asking me? To trust me? To stay safe? He stopped, struggling with words. To understand that having you here has changed things. For Sua. For me. Before Jasmine could process that admission, the door burst open. Kwan Hyuk stood there, phone in hand, expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. The situation, it's escalating. Han Sung-min's entire demeanor shifted. Details. Someone just tried to access Sua's school records. They got past the first security layer. The temperature in the room dropped. Han Sung-min's voice went cold and sharp. Lock down everything. I want eyes on the school, on this house, on everyone who's had contact with my daughter. Already in progress. Kwan Hyuk glanced at Jasmine. Should she stays here tonight. This house is the most secure location. Han Sung-min turned to her. I'm not taking chances with either of you. I have an apartment. That can wait. Sua needs you here, and I need to know you're safe. The possessive edge should have annoyed her. Instead, it created warmth that had nothing to do with appropriate relations. Fine, but I need to call my friend Brianna. Tell her you're working late. Don't give details. Han Sung-min moved toward the door, already focused on the crisis. But at the threshold, he paused. Jasmine, thank you for staying. 3 simple words, but the weight behind them felt like a promise, and a plea, and a warning all at once. After he left, Kwan Hyuk lingered. He doesn't let people in, he said quietly. Hasn't since his wife died, but you're getting through the walls, thought you should know that. Then he too left, leaving Jasmine alone with her racing thoughts. She called Brianna, gave a carefully edited explanation. Then she went upstairs to check on Sua, who was already in pajamas waiting for bedtime story. Papa said you're staying over tonight. The little girl's excitement was evident. Like a sleepover. Something like that. Miss Jasmine? Sua's voice went softer. Are we in danger? I heard Papa talking to Kwan about bad people. The question pierced Jasmine's heart. 7 years old, and already aware that her father's world included threats. Your Papa is very good at keeping people safe, she said carefully. And so is Kwan. You don't need to worry. But you'll stay, even if it's scary? Jasmine looked at this brave, vulnerable child and felt something shift permanently in her chest. I'll stay. As long as you need me. Sua's smile was worth every complicated feeling. Forever? Let's start with tonight and see how it goes. She read 3 chapters, stayed until Sua's breathing evened. Then she went to the guest room, changed into borrowed pajamas that were comically too large, and tried to process everything. Someone had threatened Sua. Han Sung-min had revealed more than he'd intended, and Jasmine had chosen to stay. Knowing her life had just become infinitely more complicated, she was still processing when her door opened quietly. Han Sung-min stood there, still dressed, but with his tie loosened and exhaustion evident. I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed. I'm fine. Did you catch whoever accessed the school records? We're working on it. He leaned against the doorframe, and the gesture was so casual, so unlike his usual controlled demeanor. I'm sorry you're caught up in this. You warned me, I chose to stay. Why? The question again, but this time with more weight. You could have walked away. Why risk this? Jasmine pulled the sleeves of the borrowed pajamas over her hands. She could give him the safe answer, but he'd been honest with her tonight. Because for the first time in 3 months, I feel like I matter, she said quietly. Since I lost my job, I've felt invisible, rejected. But here, with Sua, She stopped. With me? Han Sung-min supplied, his voice low. Their eyes met across the doorway and Jasmine felt the last of her distance crumble. This is dangerous, she whispered, not talking about the Mafia threats anymore. I know. He took 1 step into the room, just 1. Tell me to leave. She should. She absolutely should. But the words wouldn't come. Han Sung-min crossed the distance in 2 strides, and then his hand was cupping her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. You're not invisible, he said, his voice rough. I see you. Every moment you're here, I see you. Then he leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers. Not a kiss. Something more intimate. A moment of connection that acknowledged everything neither could say. They stayed like that for several heartbeats. Then Han Sung-min stepped back, his hand dropping. Lock this door after I leave, he said, his voice returning to normal. Don't open it for anyone except me or Kwan Hyuk. Sung-min, his eyes darkened at her use of his name. Yes? Be careful. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Something like surprise flickered across his face. Then, almost imperceptibly, he smiled. I will. Sleep well, Jasmine. He left, and she locked the door as instructed. but sleep was impossible. She lay in the expensive guest bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling her life shift into something entirely new. She'd fallen for him, for the dangerous, complicated, damaged man who ran a criminal empire and loved his daughter with fierce devotion. She'd fallen, despite every rational reason not to, and somehow impossibly he'd fallen for her too. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, lying in the dark in his house, knowing he was somewhere nearby keeping them all safe, Jasmine felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Dangerous, foolish, impossible hope. The crisis escalated over the next 48 hours in ways that forced Jasmine to confront exactly how dangerous Han Seung-min's world truly was. She woke to find the house transformed into something resembling a military compound. Men she'd never seen stationed at entrances. Security cameras that hadn't existed yesterday, Kwon-hyuk coordinating it all with military efficiency, and Han Seung-min locked in his study on phone calls conducted in rapid Korean. Papa's fighting the bad people, Suar explained over breakfast, far too casual. He always wins. The confidence in her voice broke Jasmine's heart and terrified her. This child had grown up seeing violence as normal, danger as inevitable, but she also saw the fierce love Han Seung-min had for his daughter. That wasn't nothing. That was everything. Your papa is very strong, Jasmine agreed. So are you, that's why he likes you. Suar. The other nannies were scared all the time, but you don't. You look at him like the scary parts don't matter as much as the good parts. 7 years old and already more perceptive than most adults. Everyone has scary parts, Jasmine said carefully. What matters is how they treat the people they love. Papa loves us, Suar declared, with absolute certainty. Me and you, I can tell. Before Jasmine could address that devastating statement, Kwon-hyuk appeared. Boss wants to see you. I'll watch the kid. Jasmine found Han Seung-min in his study, and one look told her the situation had gotten worse. We identified who's behind the threats, he said without preamble. A rival organization trying to expand into Seattle. They think targeting my family will force me to negotiate territory. What are you going to do? What I always do. Eliminate the threat. He said it so matter-of-factly that Jasmine momentarily forgot how to breathe. This was the reality. Han Seung-min wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous. He solved problems with violence. I need you to take Suar somewhere safe, he continued. There's a property outside the city. You'll stay there until this is resolved. Absolutely not. His head snapped up. Excuse me? I'm not taking Suar away from you. She needs her father, not to be hidden away. Jasmine crossed her arms. Besides, you said this house is the most secure location, so we stay here. Jasmine, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're planning something dangerous, and you want us out of the way so you can focus on the fight. She moved closer. But Suar has lost enough. She doesn't need to lose access to her father. We stay together, or we don't go at all. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Han Seung-min's jaw was tight, his eyes dark with frustration and what looked like fear. If something happens to you, then that's on me. I'm choosing this. You're impossibly stubborn. So are you. The corner of his mouth twitched. Fine. You stay. But you follow every security protocol, no arguments. Agreed. He moved around the desk, and suddenly they were close again. Why do you have to be so... He stopped, struggling. So what? So perfect for us. The admission came out raw. Suar adores you, and I... He paused, his hand coming up to cup her face. I can't stop thinking about you. About this. About what happens when the crisis passes, and we have to figure out what this is. Jasmine's breath caught. They were crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed, but his thumb was tracing her cheekbone and his eyes held something so vulnerable. Seung-min, I know all the reasons this is wrong, he continued. You work for me. I'm dangerous. My world is violent. You deserve better. But, his voice dropped, I haven't felt this alive since my wife died. You make me feel human again. The confession broke something open in Jasmine's chest. She knew she should step back. Instead, she leaned into his touch. I don't want better, she whispered. I want this, as complicated and dangerous as it is. His eyes darkened, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers again, that intimate gesture that felt more significant than any kiss. When this is over, he promised, when I know you're both safe, then we figure this out properly. Promise. Promise. The moment shattered as Kwon-hyuk burst through the door, expression grim. Boss, we have a situation. Someone just breached the outer perimeter. Han Seung-min's entire demeanor shifted. How many? 4 that we've identified. armed. Jasmine's blood turned to ice. They were under attack, with Sua upstairs. "Get them to the safe room," Han Sung-min ordered, already moving toward a hidden panel that opened to reveal weapons. "Now! Come on!" Kwon Hyuk grabbed her arm. "What about you?" Jasmine resisted, looking back at Han Sung-min as he checked a very large, very deadly gun. "I'm ending this. Go. Keep my daughter safe." The last thing she saw before Kwon Hyuk pulled her into the hallway was Han Sung-min's eyes, dark and determined and absolutely terrifying in their focus. The next 30 minutes existed in a blur. Kwon Hyuk got them to a hidden room behind a bookshelf. Reinforced walls, secure door. Sua was remarkably calm, like she'd been trained for this, which, Jasmine realized with horror, she probably had been. "Papa will be okay," Sua whispered, curled against Jasmine's side. "He always is." "Of course he will." Gunshots echoed through the house, muffled but still audible. Jasmine flinched at each one, imagining Han Sung-min in danger. She'd known him barely a month, and yet the thought of losing him created pain that felt like drowning. "Miss Jasmine, you're shaking," Sua observed. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Are you scared?" "Terrified." "A little, but we're safe here. Papa told me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you do the right thing anyway." Sua looked up at her. "You're being brave." Jasmine held her tighter, pressing a kiss to her head. Whatever happened, she would keep this child safe. The silence after the gunshots was somehow worse. They waited, Jasmine watching the door with her heart in her throat. Then, finally, a knock. 3 sharp raps, followed by 2 more. "That's Papa's pattern." Sua jumped up. Kwon Hyuk opened the door carefully. Han Sung-min stood there, and Jasmine's relief at seeing him alive warred with horror at his appearance. Blood splattered his shirt, his knuckles were torn, and there was a cut above his left eye. But he was standing. He was alive. "Papa!" Sua launched herself at him. He caught her carefully, holding her with a desperation that spoke of how close they'd come. "I'm okay, little one. Everyone's okay." His eyes found Jasmine's over his daughter's head, and the intensity there made her breath catch. He was looking at her like she was something precious he'd almost lost. "Is it over?" she asked. "It's over. The threat has been eliminated." The careful word choice wasn't lost on her. Men had died in this house tonight. She should be horrified, should be running. Instead, all she felt was overwhelming relief that he and Sua were safe. "You're hurt," she said, moving closer despite Kwon Hyuk's presence. "Nothing serious. I need to clean up, and then—" He paused. "Then we need to talk." An hour later, with Sua finally asleep, Jasmine waited in Han Sung-min's study. He'd showered and changed, the blood washed away, but she could still see it in his eyes, the weight of what he'd done. "The organization that threatened us is gone," he said, pouring them both whiskey. "Their leadership is dead. Their territory absorbed. There won't be any more attempts. You killed them. Not a question." "Yes." No apology. Just honesty. Jasmine accepted the whiskey, took a long drink. "I should be horrified." "Should be. But you're not." She met his eyes. "No. I'm grateful you protected us. Does that make me terrible?" "It makes you someone who understands the world isn't black and white." He moved closer. "I told myself I'd wait until the crisis passed. Give you time to decide if you could handle my world. But I almost lost you tonight, and I—" "Seung-min," she interrupted, setting down her glass. "Stop talking." Then she closed the distance and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was electric, desperate, full of fear and relief and everything neither could say. His arms came around her, pulling her closer, one hand tangling in her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back. Jasmine had been kissed before, but never like this. Never with this intensity, this sense of rightness despite all the reasons it was wrong. His mouth moved against hers with hunger that matched her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Han Sung-min rested his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he said softly. "I know. I can't offer you a normal life. There will always be danger, always be complications. I know that too. But I'm asking anyway. Stay with us. Not as an employee, as—" He paused. "As someone I need. Someone Sua needs. Someone who makes this house feel like a home again." Jasmine pulled back enough to look at him. This powerful, dangerous man was offering her a place in his life. Not the safe position she thought she wanted, but something real and complicated and terrifying. "I'm still figuring out how to reconcile who you are with what you do," she admitted. "I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't scare me. The violence, the danger, the moral complexity. I understand. If you need to leave, I'm not finished." She cupped his face, feeling stubble rough against her palms. But I also see who you are with Sua, how you're trying to give her a better life even while operating in darkness. How you're capable of gentleness and protection and love. That man, the one underneath the Mafia boss exterior, that's who I'm choosing. You're sure? No. But I'm choosing you anyway. His smile transformed his face. You're impossibly brave. Or impossibly stupid. Both, probably. Then he kissed her again, slower this time, savoring instead of desperately claiming. They stayed like that for a long moment, two people who'd found each other in unlikely circumstances, choosing connection despite every reason to walk away. Finally, Jasmine pulled back. I should go. It's late, and Sua might wake up. Stay. The word came out rough. I'm not asking for anything inappropriate, but stay in the house tonight. I need to know you're close, that you're safe. The vulnerability in his admission undid her. Okay. He walked her to the guest room, and at the door he caught her hand. Jasmine, thank you for staying, for choosing us. Thank you for letting me in. One more kiss, soft and sweet and full of promise. Then he left her, and Jasmine collapsed onto the bed with her mind spinning. She'd crossed every line, violated every boundary. She was falling in love with a criminal, putting herself in a world of danger she didn't understand. And yet for the first time since being fired, since losing the career she'd built, since feeling like her life had fallen apart, she felt whole again. Dangerous, complicated, impossible whole. The weeks following the attack settled into something that resembled normalcy, if you ignored the armed security and the fact that Jasmine had fallen completely in love with a Mafia boss. It was December now, and Seattle's rain had turned to occasional snow. The Madison Park mansion transformed under Sua's enthusiastic holiday decorating, and Jasmine found herself experiencing a domesticity she'd never imagined wanting. Higher! The star needs to go higher, Sua directed from the couch, watching Han Sung-min struggle with the Christmas tree topper. If I go any higher, I'll need a ladder, he muttered, but his eyes held affectionate amusement. Jasmine watched from the doorway, her heart so full it hurt. The three of them together, laughing over holiday decorations, creating memories. This felt more like family than anything she'd experienced since her grandmother died. Papa, you're doing it wrong, Sua critiqued. Miss Jasmine, can you help him? I think your papa can handle a Christmas star. Actually, Han Sung-min turned to her with a smile that still made her pulse race. I could use assistance. These instructions are in English. Jasmine rolled her eyes but moved closer. His English was perfect. This was just an excuse, and they both knew it. She reached up to adjust the star, and his hands settled on her waist, steadying her. The casual touch, so natural now after weeks of stolen moments, still sent electricity through her. There, she said. Perfect. Yes, Han Sung-min agreed, but he was looking at her, not the tree. Perfect. You two are being gross again, Sua announced. But I don't mind, it's nice when Papa smiles. Later, after Sua was in bed and the house had settled, Jasmine found herself in Han Sung-min's study again. I have something for you, he said, producing a small wrapped box. Sung-min, we said no gifts until Christmas. This isn't a Christmas gift, it's... He paused and she saw nervousness. Actual nervousness, from the most composed man she'd ever met. It's important. Open it. Inside the box was a key. A key to the house, he explained. I want you to move in. Officially. Not as Sua's nanny, but as... He stopped. As what? As my partner. As someone who belongs here. As someone I love. The last words came out rough, like they'd been torn from somewhere deep. Jasmine's eyes filled with unexpected tears. You love me? Terrifyingly. Completely. He moved closer, his hands finding her face. I swore I wouldn't feel this way again after losing my wife, that I'd keep my heart locked away. But you walked into my house with your stubborn determination and your fierce protectiveness, and you demolished every wall I'd built. I love you too, Jasmine whispered, because there was no point pretending. Even though you're dangerous and complicated, I love you. His kiss was desperate and tender, celebrating and claiming all at once. When they finally broke apart, Jasmine pressed the key against her chest. Yes, she said. I'll move in. I'll be your partner. I'll be whatever this is that we're building together. Family, Han Sung-min supplied. We're building a family. The word settled over them like a benediction. Family. Something both had lost and mourned, and thought they'd never have again. That night, curled against his side in his bed for the first time, Jasmine thought about the unlikely path that had led her here. Getting fired had seemed like the end. Instead, It had been a beginning, a chance to find a love she never would have discovered otherwise. "What are you thinking?" Han Sung-min's voice rumbled against her cheek. "That I should send Principal Matthews a thank-you card." He laughed, a real laugh, full and genuine. "For firing you, for setting me on the path to you, to this." She propped herself up to look at him. "I spent my whole life trying to do everything right, following the rules, being responsible, building a respectable career. And where did it get me? Fired and struggling. And now? Now I'm in love with a criminal, living in his mansion, helping raise his daughter. By all conventional standards, I've made terrible choices. But I've never been happier." She kissed him softly. "Turns out, the right path isn't always the one society approves of." His arms tightened around her. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, while snow fell softly outside, and the house that had been cold for so long finally felt warm. The next morning brought Brianna, determination written all over her face. "Okay, we need to talk," her best friend announced, pushing past Kwon Hyuk. "You've been dodging my calls. What the hell is going on, Jazz?" Jasmine glanced at Han Sung-min, who gave her a small nod. "Your choice. Come into the kitchen. I'll explain everything." 20 minutes later, Brianna sat at the kitchen island with her third cup of coffee, processing. "So let me get this straight," Brianna said slowly. "You're dating your boss, who's a Korean Mafia boss, and you're living in his mansion, and armed men attacked the house last month. That about covers it. And you're happy?" Jasmine thought about Sua's laughter, about Han Sung-min's gentle smile, about waking up feeling loved and valued. "Deliriously," she admitted. Brianna stared at her. Then she started laughing. "Girl, you are insane, completely insane." "I know, but—" Brianna reached across to squeeze her hand. "I haven't seen you smile like this in years, not since before your grandmother died. So if Mr. Tall, Dark and Dangerous makes you this happy, then I guess I approve." "Really? Hell no. I think you've lost your mind, but I also trust you. If you say he's worth the risk, I believe you." She paused. "But if he ever hurts you, I know people who know people. Cops, Jazz, I know cops." They were both laughing when Han Sung-min appeared with Sua trailing behind him. "Is everything okay?" he asked, body language protective. "Everything's fine," Jasmine assured him. "Seung-min, this is my best friend Brianna. Bri, this is Han Sung-min." "The infamous Mafia boss," Brianna said, standing to extend her hand. "You hurt my friend, and you'll have problems that don't involve rival organizations." To Jasmine's surprise, Han Sung-min smiled, a real smile, slightly amused. "Fair enough, but I have no intention of hurting her." "Good, because Jazz deserves happiness." "She does," he agreed, his eyes finding Jasmine's, "and I intend to make sure she has it." Sua, who'd been watching this exchange with fascination, piped up. "Are you Miss Jasmine's family too?" "I am," Brianna said firmly. "And you must be the famous Sua. Your dad's girlfriend has told me wonderful things about you." Sua beamed, then turned to her father. "Papa, Miss Jasmine is your girlfriend?" Han Sung-min looked momentarily uncertain. "Would that be okay with you?" "Obviously. I've been waiting for you to figure it out forever." Sua rolled her eyes with theatrical exasperation. Grown-ups are so slow. The adults exchanged glances and burst into laughter, the kind that comes from relief and joy and recognition of absurdity. That evening, after Brianna had left, with multiple threats about what would happen if Han Sung-min broke Jasmine's heart, the three of them had dinner together. "Miss Jasmine," Sua said over dessert, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Are you going to be my new mama?" The question froze everyone. Jasmine felt her heart stop, then race. Han Sung-min's hand found hers under the table. "Sua," he started. "It's okay, Papa. I know Miss Jasmine isn't really my mama. I remember my real mama." Sua's expression was serious. "But maybe people can have more than one mama, like how some kids have stepmamas or adopted mamas." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. This brave, brilliant child was offering her a place in their family with straightforward honesty. "I would be honored to be another mama to you," Jasmine said carefully. "Not to replace your first mama. Nobody could. But to be someone who loves you and takes care of you. Would that be okay?" Sua's smile could have powered the entire city. "Yes, that would be perfect." Later, after Sua was asleep, Han Sung-min pulled Jasmine into his arms. "You know she's going to hold you to that." "I know, and I want her to." "She calls you Miss Jasmine," he observed. "When will she start calling you something else?" "When she's ready, when it feels natural." Jasmine looked up at him. "We don't need to rush. We have time. Do we?" His expression turned serious. Jasmine, there's something I need to tell you. My business, the legitimate side, requires travel. Next month I have to go to Seoul for 2 weeks. Important meetings I can't delegate. He paused. I want you to come with me, you and Soo-ah, as my family. To Seoul? But I don't speak Korean. I'll teach you. And Soo-ah needs to connect with her Korean heritage. She hasn't been since her mother died. His hands framed her face. I want to show you where I came from. Introduce you to the parts of my life you haven't seen. If we're building a future together, you should know all of me. Jasmine thought about the enormity of what he was offering. Meeting his world in Korea, being introduced as his partner, taking Soo-ah to connect with her roots. Yes, she said, we'll go. His kiss was answer and promise and celebration, and as they stood there while snow fell outside, Jasmine marveled at how much her life had changed in 4 months. She'd come to Seattle broken and desperate. She'd found a damaged man and his lonely daughter, both aching for connection. And somehow, impossibly, they'd rebuilt each other. I love you, Han Sung-min whispered against her hair. You saved us. Saved me. You saved me too, she whispered back. From giving up. From thinking I didn't have value. From believing that following all the rules was the only path to happiness. So we saved each other. Yeah, we did. Outside, Seattle sparkled with Christmas lights and falling snow. Inside, 3 people who'd all known loss and loneliness had found something precious, a family built not on convention or society's rules, but on love and choice and stubborn determination. Jasmine thought about the title of her life story. The Korean Mafia boss needed someone to watch his daughter, but found the woman who stole his heart instead. It was dramatic and over the top, and absolutely true. She'd come here to watch his daughter. She'd stayed because she'd stolen his heart, and given him hers in return. And that, she thought, as Han Sung-min pulled her closer, was the best unexpected ending she could have imagined. Years later, the Madison Park mansion had evolved into something entirely new. The fortress remained, but warmth had seeped into every corner, from the photos covering once empty walls to the sounds of laughter filling rooms where silence used to reign. Jasmine stood on the terrace overlooking Lake Washington, watching Seattle's summer sunset paint the sky. Behind her, the house buzzed with activity, guests arriving for Soo-ah's middle school graduation party. You're doing the thinking face again, Han Sung-min said, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. She leaned back against him, still marveling that this had become her daily reality. Just remembering. Remembering what? The day I walked into your house. Terrified and desperate, never imagining that accepting that interview would change my entire life. His lips brushed her temple. You changed ours too. Walked in like you owned the place, refused to be intimidated, and completely demolished every wall I'd spent years building. Stubborn determination, it's my best quality. One of many. His hand moved to the rings on her left hand, engagement ring and wedding band that had joined there 18 months ago in a ceremony that blended Korean and African-American traditions with Soo-ah as their most enthusiastic supporter. Mama! Papa! Speaking of Soo-ah, the now 12-year-old burst onto the terrace. Grandma Rose is here. Jasmine's heart swelled at the title Soo-ah had chosen for Brianna's mother, who'd welcomed them all into her family. Extended family had grown in unexpected ways. Kwon Hyuk now had a standing Sunday dinner invitation. We should go greet everyone, Han Sung-min said, but his arms didn't loosen. In a minute. Jasmine turned in his embrace. I want to enjoy this moment. Our daughter graduating middle school. Our house full of people we love, the life we built against all odds. Our daughter, he repeated softly, the words still precious to him. Soo-ah had started calling Jasmine Mama naturally about 6 months after that first conversation, and the title had never stopped making Jasmine's eyes sting with happy tears. She's going to do amazing things, Jasmine said. She's brilliant and brave and stubborn, Han Sung-min finished with a smile. I wonder where she learned that. From both of us, probably. They stood there as the sunset deepened, 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. Han Sung-min had gradually transitioned away from the most violent aspects of his business, focusing on legitimate enterprises while maintaining enough connection to keep his family safe. It wasn't perfect. There were still complications, still moments when his past demanded attention, but they navigated it together. Mama, Papa, seriously, everyone's asking for you, Soo-ah called again, but her tone held affection. We're coming, Jasmine called back, then turned to her husband. Ready to celebrate our daughter. Ready to celebrate our family, he corrected. All of it, the expected parts and the surprising parts and the messy, complicated, beautiful parts. Hand in hand, they walked back into the house, into the noise and warmth and love that filled every corner. Brianna caught Jasmine's eye from across the room and gave her a thumbs up. Kwan Hyuk was attempting to teach some of Sua's friends a Korean card game. Extended family and friends mingled, creating a tapestry of cultures and backgrounds and stories. This was what they'd built. Not perfect, not conventional, but entirely theirs. Later that night, after the guests had left, and Sua had finally gone to bed, Jasmine and Han Sung-min sat together in his study, the room where so much of their story had unfolded. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Accepting that interview? Staying when you learned the truth?" Jasmine thought about the question seriously. She thought about the career she'd lost, the conventional life she'd imagined. She thought about the danger they'd faced, the complicated moral compromises. Then she thought about Sua's laughter, about the way Han Sung-min looked at her like she was the center of his world, about the family they'd built from broken pieces. "Not even once," she said firmly. "This life with you, with Sua, with all its complications, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even though I'm dangerous, even though my world is violent." "You are dangerous," she agreed, "but you're also gentle with your daughter, patient with her questions, protective of the people you love. You taught me that people are complex, that morality isn't always black and white, that sometimes the right choice doesn't follow the rules." Han Sung-min pulled her closer, and she settled into his embrace with comfortable familiarity. "I never thought I'd find this again," he admitted. "After my first wife died, I convinced myself that love was a luxury I couldn't afford, that being alone was safer. Then you walked into my house and proved me wrong about everything." "We proved each other wrong," Jasmine corrected. "I thought success meant following society's rules. You thought survival meant staying closed off. Together we learned that happiness is something you build, not something you follow a map to find." They sat in comfortable silence, both reflecting on the journey. Outside, Seattle's lights sparkled. Inside, their home, not just a house anymore, held all the love and warmth they'd created. "Thank you," Han Sung-min said softly. "For what?" "For seeing me, for staying, for loving Sua like your own, for being the woman who stole my heart and taught me how to live again." Jasmine smiled, thinking about all the unexpected turns. Getting fired had seemed like the end. Instead, it had been a beginning, the start of a journey that led her here. "You're welcome," she whispered. "But honestly, I think I got the better deal." His laughter rumbled through his chest. "We can agree to disagree on that." And there in the study where they'd first begun to see each other clearly, where they'd navigated crises and confessions and the slow building of trust, Jasmine and Han Sung-min held each other and celebrated the beautiful, complicated, impossible life they'd built together. Because sometimes the best stories don't follow the expected path. Sometimes they start with desperation and danger and everything you're not supposed to choose. And sometimes, if you're incredibly lucky, those unexpected choices lead to exactly where you were always meant to be. Home.